Bob Chamberlain drew up a blueprint for a tractor. It was a heavy-duty, broad-acre tractor. But just as the components were ready for assembling, along came World War II, and Bob was posted to an Allied design team to develop war machines. He returned in 1943 and with a wealth of design ideas got stuck into the tractor project again. Post-war reconstruction planning was beginning and the government was worried about food, equipment and labour shortages. Norman Macon, Minister for Industry under Chifley, knew of the Chamberlain design and investigated the possibility of producing a prototype with government funding. By 1945, the 40 kA prototype was ready for testing. The tractor was a success, but putting it into production was financially impossible. Enter Norman Fernie, Director of Industrial Development for the Western Australian Government. He made an offer they were hard put to refuse. Come to Western Australia, set up your business, employ West Australians, and the government will assist you in whatever way they can. So, in 1949, the Chamberlain tractor dynasty began. With state and federal funding, they moved into their new factory at Welshpool and began production. The 40 kA rolled off the assembly line. Farmers bought their tractors directly from the factory as no national distributorship had been set up. By 1952, disaster loomed. Government funding was reduced from 40 to 25%. On top of that, increased funds from the dollar loan boosted tractor imports. But with parts and supplies to keep on producing and a commitment to employ 2,000 West Australians, the Chamberlains continued to produce 60 tractors a week. Farmers weren't buying as wheat prices were too low. With thousands of unsold tractors and an overdraft of $7 million, the Chamberlains were looking at bankruptcy. When they had to lay off 500 staff, Bill Chamberlain sent an urgent telegram to Prime Minister Menzies asking him to halt the import of tractors.
We have indisputable proof that our machine is acceptable by wheat farmers throughout Australia as the best machine for Australian conditions. We would appreciate information direct from your department on policy regarding continued unnecessary imports.
With no satisfactory response, the Chamberlains decided to expand production with a diesel tractor. It was the 70DA that drew great excitement.
Farmers, here's the most economical answer to your power problem. It's the Chamberlain Super 70DA. The All-Australian Super 70 is a colossus in every way, except operating cost and maintenance. Ask any 70DA owner. He will tell you its 88 brake horsepower GM Series 71 engine, plus dual rear wheels, plus 9 forward gears, gives you power and performance unequaled in any other wheeled tractor.
Secondly, they set about producing a range of ploughs and scarifiers. These too were a great success with over $2 million worth sold in 1953.
Farmers, even under the toughest conditions, the Australian designed and built Chamberlain disc plough allows you to plough a 30% wider cut with less power. One glance tells you this massive, precision-engineered Chamberlain disc plough is without equal.
Still, there was a large amount of unsold petrol tractors and the overdraft to deal with. The last thing they needed was a change of government. And for all their troubles, that's just what the Chamberlains got. The West Australian government changed hands from Labor to Liberal. The new government had ideas to sell off the company and courted Massey Ferguson to the table. The deal fell through over lunch. To beef up the bank balance and justify their existence, the Chamberlain Champion, a 45 horsepower diesel, was developed. The Champion was piloted in the Red-X trials and was known as Tail End Charlie. Sales of the tractor were good, but demand was for a 55 horsepower tractor, and so the 55 kA was launched in 1954. Later, a diesel version, the 55DA, was developed. But with too many problems, one of them a perceived lack of market, Bob Chamberlain directed it be withdrawn. However, during one of his absences, the 55DA went into production. Sales were non-existent until Bob offered a trade-in deal. Even then, they lost money. In 1956, the company and the state government parted ways. While the family moved back to Melbourne, tractors were still produced at Welshpool. The Champion, one of the most successful Australian-made tractors ever, was in production for 15 years. In 1970, John Deere and Company bought a 49% interest in Chamberlain, creating Chamberlain John Deere. By 1981, with 20% of the Australian tractor market cornered, 50,000 Chamberlain tractors had been sold. By 1986, production of an Australian-made tractor ceased in favour of wholly imported machinery.
Farmers, before you buy any farm equipment, be sure to ask this most important question. What about spare parts? If it's a Chamberlain Australian-made product, the answer will be all Chamberlain genuine spare parts are manufactured in Australia, are never in short supply, are fully guaranteed, and cost far less. The same exacting standards and highest grade materials used in the original parts are equally present in all Chamberlain replacements.
Now, here's that small tractor, the Clee tractor.